Young and the Restless spoilers. The walls of Genoa City are closing in on Audra Charles, and for perhaps the first time since she set foot in town, her schemes have left her cornered with no graceful escape in sight. For months she has thrived on manipulation, deception, and aligning herself with power players like Victor Newman, maneuvering through business rivalries and personal entanglements with calculated precision. Yet the relentless ambition that once elevated her is now threatening to undo everything she built, and it is not by accident. Holden Novak and Claire Newman, two unlikely allies, have formed a partnership with one clear goal: to expose Audra for her relentless attempts to sabotage Claire's relationship with Kyle Abbott. Together, they have woven a net tight enough to force Audra into a place she has always avoided admitting the truth. Holden's rival in Genoa City was met with curiosity, his presence initially dismissed as another young player looking for a foothold in the city's tangled hierarchy of power. But Holden has proven himself sharper than anyone expected, quick to recognize that Audra's path of destruction was not only personal, but destabilizing for the companies and relationships around her. He has been circling her from the moment he arrived, studying her moves, anticipating her manipulations, and patiently waiting for the moment when she would stumble. That patience has finally borne fruit. Teaming with Claire, who has every personal reason to want Audra's lies exposed, Holden has constructed the perfect trap. Claire, bruised but not broken from Audra's repeated efforts to destroy her bond with Kyle, has turned her pain into purpose, and with Holden by her side, she has found the strength to fight back not through revenge, but through strategy. The partnership between Holden and Claire is not built on convenience alone. It is born of necessity. Both understand that Audra's manipulations thrive in secrecy, in whispered conversations and subtle betrayals, and the only way to neutralize her is to bring her lies into the light. By approaching Audra directly, by forcing her into conversations where her words could be scrutinized and her inconsistencies revealed, they have created cracks in the armor of a woman who has always prided herself on control. And for once, Audra has faltered. Whether it is the weight of Holden's persistence, Claire's determination, or the tightening pressure from Victor Newman himself, Audra has found herself stumbling toward the one thing she never intended to do: confess. Yet even her confession is tangled in layers of self-preservation and misdirection. In the preview for the week, Audra is shown confessing to Nate Hastings, a man whose trust she once cultivated, but whose sharp instincts have now turned against her. The revelation is not delivered out of remorse or genuine accountability, is dragged from her by circumstance, by the realization that Nate already sees through her lies and that silence would only condemn her further. Audra's decision to unburden herself to Nate is less an act of contrition than a desperate gamble, a calculated risk that honesty might salvage her alliance with Victor or soften the fallout of her exposed schemes. But in her desperation, she reveals more than she intended, unraveling the careful narrative she built and exposing the manipulations that have kept her afloat. The irony of Audra's downfall is that she attempts to weaponize Kyle Abbott as her scapegoat. Blaming Kyle for the unraveling of her secrets, she lashes out in frustration, convinced that his loose tongue or hidden agenda is the reason her duplicity has been revealed. But in doing so, she only highlights the very betrayal she has been orchestrating all along her plan, sanctioned by Victor Newman, to sabotage Kyle's relationship with Claire and leave Claire vulnerable. For Victor, the plan was simple. If Audra could break Kyle's heart, destabilize his connection to Claire, and push him into emotional freefall, Victor would back her and give her the leverage she craved at Vibranti. But instead of dismantling Kyle and Claire, Audra has only managed to expose herself, drawing attention not to their weaknesses, but to her own. Victor Newman is not a man who tolerates failure, nor does he forgive betrayal easily. His willingness to align himself with Audra was not born of trust, but of utility, was a means to an end, a tool he could use to orchestrate chaos in the lives of those who defied him. But once a tool proves unreliable, Victor wastes no time in discarding it. When Audra stands before him now, stripped of her composure and confessing her sins, she is not reclaiming his loyalty, but hastening her own downfall. Victor does not see her confession as strength. He sees it as weakness. In his world, admitting fault is an admission of defeat, and Audra, who prided herself on outmaneuvering everyone, has handed him proof that she is dispensable. Nate Hastings, meanwhile, becomes the voice of clarity in the midst of Audra's chaos. For weeks he has suspected her lies, pressing against the inconsistencies in her stories and the cracks in her alliances. When Audra attempts to manipulate him with half-truths, Nate refuses to be swayed, calling her out with a bluntness that cuts through her web of deceit. It is his refusal to indulge her that ultimately breaks her, pushing her into the desperate choice to confess. And yet, even in confession, Audra cannot bring herself to be fully honest. She continues to spin narratives, to adjust facts, to downplay her betrayals, all in the hope that Nate might offer her sympathy. But Nate is not interested in sympathy. He is interested in truth. When Audra chooses lies instead, she only seals her fate further. The burning question now is what exactly forced Audra to confess? Was it truly the persistence of Nate, the one man who refused to be blinded by her charm? Or was it the strategic pressure of Claire and Holden, whose careful maneuvering left her with no escape? The answer, most likely, is both. Claire and Holden have orchestrated the conditions in which Audra could no longer maintain her facade, while Nate's sharp instincts cornered her into words she could no longer swallow. It is a perfect storm of accountability, crafted by those she underestimated, and it leaves Audra vulnerable in ways she has never been before. For Claire, the victory is sweet, but it is also fragile. Forcing Audra to admit her attempts to sabotage her relationship with Kyle is vindication, a public acknowledgement that she was not paranoid, that her love was indeed under attack. But the damage has already been done, and confessions cannot erase the scars of betrayal. Claire may finally have the truth on her side, but she must now decide whether that truth is enough to heal the fractures in her bond with Kyle, or whether Audra's poison has already seeped too deep. For Holden, the battle may be only beginning. Aligning with Claire to bring down Audra was a strategic victory. But in Genoa City, victories are rarely permanent. He has revealed himself as a player, and in doing so, he has made himself a target. Audra's confession, whether remembered as an act of defiance or a moment of weakness, changes the game for everyone involved. Victor, disappointed in her failure, may cut her loose and seek new pawns. Nate, hardened by her lies, may refuse to give her another chance. Claire, emboldened by her victory, may step more fully into the Newman legacy, proving herself as a woman capable of taking down adversaries as ruthless as any Newman before her. And Holden, by aligning with her, may find himself standing not just as an ally, but as a permanent fixture in her story, a man whose loyalty has given her the strength to rise. Yet the most dramatic truth of all may be this: confessions on the Young and the Restless are never the end of a story, they are the beginning of a new one. Audra Charles has survived betrayal before, and while her confession may appear to be a breaking point, it could also be the foundation for her reinvention. She may plot in silence, waiting for her chance to strike back at Claire, Holden, Nate, and even Victor. Or she may fall so far that redemption becomes her only option. Either way, her downfall ensures that Genoa City will not rest easy. The game has shifted, alliances have changed, and the once untouchable Audra has been forced to taste the bitterness of her own medicine. The Young and the Restless has built its legacy on the premise that no one in Genoa City is ever quite who they claim to be, and Holden Novak may be the latest character to embody that truth. From the moment he appeared on screen, Holden carried himself as though he were a newcomer, a man simply finding his way in the shifting alliances and business rivalries that define the city. Yet his calm confidence, his ability to insert himself seamlessly into the drama, and his quick alignment with Claire Newman hinted at a deeper history. That history has now begun to unravel, with the revelation that Audra Charles knew Holden long before his arrival in Genoa City and that their past together in Los Angeles was far more intimate than she ever admitted. For a woman who prides herself on control, on her ability to spin every narrative to her advantage, this disclosure is devastating. Audra's insistence that she barely knew Holden has collapsed under the weight of his own confession that not only were they close, but their connection may have bordered on marriage. The suggestion that Audra and Holden may have been secretly married during their time in Los Angeles, or at the very least bound by a relationship deeper than casual acquaintance, rewrites the entire foundation of their interactions in Genoa City. It casts every conversation, every sideways glance, and every accusation in a new light. Audra's denial of their bond becomes not just an omission, but a deliberate deception. If Holden and Audra were indeed once entwined, his decision to join Claire in her battle against her makes perfect sense. This is not merely about supporting Claire as a friend, it is about revenge, about punishing Audra for the humiliation of being cast aside, ignored, and erased from her narrative. Holden's loyalty to Claire may be genuine, but it is also fueled by a wounded pride, by the anger of a man whose past was buried without his consent. For Claire, Holden's assistance has been invaluable. He has stood at her side as she sought to expose Audra's manipulations, strategized with her to force confessions, and offered the kind of emotional support she desperately needed after months of being undermined. Yet the revelation of his history with Audra complicates everything. Did Holden join her fight because he truly believed in her innocence and strength, or because Audra's rejection gave him a personal stake in tearing her down? Is Holden's alliance with Claire a matter of principle, or is it merely the latest move in a long game of vengeance that predates his arrival in Genoa City? Claire, who has fought hard to rebuild trust after years of feeling like an outsider in the Newman family, now finds herself in the precarious position of questioning the motives of the very man she allowed into her circle. The uncertainty only deepens when whispers emerge that Holden's ties extend beyond Audra and Claire. Rumors suggest that Cain Ashby himself may have nudged Holden closer to Claire, setting the stage for a manipulation far greater than anyone realizes. Cain, who has long struggled to maintain his own balance between morality and ambition, may see in Holden the perfect instrument, someone with proximity to Claire, access to Newman information, and the charisma to gain her confidence. If Holden's loyalty is not to Claire, but to Cain, then every word he has spoken, every comforting gesture, every promise of support has been part of a carefully orchestrated plan. The question then becomes whether Holden is a genuine ally or merely a double agent, playing both sides until the time comes to strike. This possibility leaves Claire vulnerable in ways she cannot ignore. Already bruised by Audra's relentless sabotage and forced to question the sincerity of Kyle Abbott's love, Claire now faces the prospect that Holden's companionship has been tainted from the start. If Holden is working with Cain, then his interest in her is not born of friendship or even attraction. It is a calculated attempt to pry open her trust, extract her secrets, and deliver them into the hands of a man who might seek to challenge the Newman dynasty. For Claire, who has only just begun to feel the stability of belonging within her family and her relationship with Kyle, the idea that she could once again be nothing more than a pawn is unbearable. The fallout of Holden's revelation reverberates across Genoa City's tangled web of relationships. Audra, who once controlled every interaction with icy precision, is suddenly on the defensive. Her credibility is shattered not only by her confessions to Nate Hastings, but by the exposure of her past with Holden. She is revealed as a liar not just in business, but in matters of the heart, a woman who denies her own history to maintain control. This unraveling leaves her isolated, stripped of allies, and facing the very real possibility of losing Nate permanently. Nate, who once tolerated Audra's ambition, is not likely to forgive such profound dishonesty. His patience has already been tested by her manipulations, and learning that she concealed an entire relationship or fact, even a marriage will likely prove to be the final straw. Victor Newman, too, cannot ignore the implications. He is a man who values loyalty above all else, and Audra's willingness to lie about her past, even while serving his interests, proves she cannot be trusted. For Victor, Audra's failure is compounded by her lack of transparency, and in his eyes, such weakness cannot be tolerated. But Victor may also turn his calculating eye toward Holden. If Holden is aligned with Kane, and Kane seeks to undermine Newman power, Victor will not stand idly by. He may view Holden as a threat that needs to be neutralized, or he may seek to test his loyalty, probing to see whether this new player can be manipulated for his own ends. Either way, Holden has ensured that Victor's gaze will not drift from him anytime soon, and in Genoa City, Victor's attention is as dangerous as it is influential. Meanwhile, Kyle Abbott, caught in the middle of this storm, faces his own reckoning. His relationship with Claire has been battered by Audra's schemes, but it may not survive the added complication of Holden's presence. If Holden's history with Audra creates doubt in Claire's mind, if she begins to wonder whether Holden's loyalty to her is genuine or opportunistic, Kyle may find himself fighting a battle on two fronts, against Audra's lingering influence and against Holden's potential interference. His proposal to Claire, once envisioned as the next step in cementing their bond, now hangs in the balance. Will Claire accept, desperate to secure stability amid chaos? Or will Holden's shadow cast doubt so strong that she hesitates, unwilling to bind herself to Kyle while unanswered questions remain? Holden Novak is no longer simply a new face in town. He has become the catalyst for a series of revelations that threaten to upend alliances and fracture relationships. His past with Audra proves that history cannot be buried. His alliance with Claire raises questions about loyalty and revenge. And his rumored ties to Kane suggest that his role in Genoa City is part of a much larger game. For Audra, his exposure may be the final nail in her coffin, a humiliation that strips her of Nate, Victor, and any remaining shred of power. For Claire, his presence is a test of trust, a reminder that in Genoa City, even friends can be enemies in disguise. For Kyle, it is a threat to his future, a rival whose influence could destroy his chance at happiness. And for Kane, it is an opportunity, a chance to reach into Newman territory without lifting a finger himself. In the end, Holden Novak may prove to be more dangerous than Audra Charles ever was, not because of the lies he tells, but because of the truths he chooses to reveal. His confession about Los Angeles is only the beginning, a spark that could ignite a firestorm of betrayal, ambition, and heartbreak. Whether he is driven by revenge, loyalty, or a hunger for power, Holden has secured his place as a player in Genoa City's endless chess game. And as with every player before him, the only certainty is that someone will lose everything before the game is done.